I was at a point in my career where, I felt like everything I wanted, to accomplish in the Air Force, I was able to do. And, I saw like the longer term path, right? In that career there. And there was still a lot more on the private sector I wanted to accomplish. And part of that was starting a company that, could really make an impact, across national security and the overall industrial ecosystems.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with my friend Matt Shieh, co-founder and CEO of Canopy Aerospace. Matt, thanks for chatting with me today.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
That's going to be great. Well, first of all, I can see all the patches. Obviously a veteran, which I know. So with that, thanks for your service. And then also, can you walk us through your journey, how you got to be, an entrepreneur in the aerospace sector?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of start with kind of early on in the days. I come from a pretty entrepreneurial driven family. So, starting out, watch my family, my dad start, and fail businesses over the lifetime and, watch my aunts, uncles and everything. They're all in the restaurant sector, but I'd say it's more in my blood. So, kind of seeing my family's done it in the past before, that inspired me to take a lot more risk and just, pursue my passions and do things in my own way. Like getting out of the Air Force, right? We have some similarities here where my path was taking business school, developing good foundational knowledge on the industry. And that's, allowed me to gain the confidence to go down overall venture path and entrepreneurial path. And then, that's kind of led me to where we are today.
Well, that's great. So how about that transition? So you were in the B-52 and then, getting out, and then how did you then make those steps, for folks that are considering, separating or leaving the military? What'd that look like?
Yeah, I was at a point in my career where, I felt like everything I wanted, to accomplish in the Air Force, I was able to do. And, I saw like the longer term path, right? In that career there. And there was still a lot more on the private sector I wanted to accomplish. And part of that was starting a company that, could really make an impact, across national security and the overall industrial ecosystem. So that led me to, right, took the business school path, was in Chicago, doing my MBA there, and started looking at kind of aerospace defense manufacturing, exposed myself to a few accelerators, ended up joining one called FedTech early on, where they basically align entrepreneurs with, federal lab technologies for potential commercialization. And that's where I got exposed to a lot of different technologies in the lab space. We got connected with NASA specifically, and that's what led me down kind of understanding the market more and driving towards, developing enough conviction to start this company. But I'd say being in the military, Air Force, it taught me a lot about aligning overall vision, mission with personal drive. And that's where a lot of, what I'm doing today, day to day, is on national security, defense, industrialism that aligned with, what I was doing, in the Air Force, on the operational end, but it's more of a different way to do it today. The other part of, I think, Air Force, which I think a lot of vets resonate with in general, is just overall comfortability with risk and, just taking chances and, going into the unknown and just having confidence doing that. And I think that's been a big trait that, taught me, how to thrive in this kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely some unknowns in the startup world.
There's a few.
So I've always been curious about this. So talk more about like the incubators, the accelerators, as you were in, getting your MBA, how do these work? Is it hard to find, one to go in? What's kind of their acceptance criteria? Can you kind of share what you learned in that process and, yours more specifically and how they, how it worked?
Yeah, we've gone through a few accelerators that helped us on our journey. The three main ones would be UChicago's Polsky Center, New Venture Challenge is one, Starburst, and then Techstars as well. So going through accelerators, I mean, there's a lot of different accelerators out there, but the way I look at it now is, finding the right one to, for one, expand your network. So helping with, introductions to investors, other business partners, potential customers, and helping thinking about your company in, from a business model perspective. And the best way to do that is by talking to a lot of people. And so going through accelerators, you expose yourselves to a much broader network. I think, if you're in a very siloed industry like, the defense industry, military, activity in general, then, once you get out, you don't have a lot of exposure. You don't have, a huge network. So that was how I looked at doing accelerators. But, going through, let's say Chicago, for example, that accelerator, that was my first exposure to, kind of like the business model, right? The right customers to go after, business unit economics, fundraising, right? How do you develop the capital stack to fund your company? And then also, right, how do you build the right team? What are like the early mistakes a lot of companies make? So that taught me a lot of that early on. Going into like Starburst, Techstars, you do a lot of the same things as well, as far as like business model, right? Understanding how to develop your company strategically. But those help open a lot of doors to good investors, good partners, good partners on the government end as well. But yeah, it kind of depends on what the needs are of yourself as an entrepreneur and the people on your team. But I'd say the biggest advantage would be continuing to develop the network and then just having supporters out there across different networks that are behind you as a company.
So did you know coming out of your MBA specifically what you wanted to do and had kind of a vision, or did you go into the accelerators with more of an open mind, trying to identify?
Yeah, I'd say it's always an open mind, and I kind of maybe backtrack a bit to the first accelerator, which was FedTech I mentioned, which was exposing us to the federal lab space. That one I didn't have kind of the right vision in mind. It was more of understanding the market better, and then okay, figuring out, okay, here's a bunch of problems in this space, doing more kind of like lean startup method, right? Interviewing a lot of people, talking to subject matter experts out there and just understanding the space. Because what you don't want to do is build a company that's solving for the wrong problem. So identifying the problem first was the biggest, I think, benefit there. And, we still do that every day with when we talk to customers, when we talk to the market, when we develop our strategy for where we want to go as a company is you got to start with the customer and the problem that you're solving for. Otherwise, you're building a company that doesn't matter.
Yeah. So for the as you rolled into this, was this more of like an academic setting, or is it a like how do they drive? For folks that haven't seen one, the day to day, what does it look like? Did you do it while you were at school, or is it full time?
Yeah, I did it while I was in school. So, I mean, I kind of, I got a family as well, married with a 5-year-old, and balancing that with school plus doing a company, you can really only focus on two of those things. So, I'd say my grades took a hit, definitely, but I leveraged my network there and spent my time focused on building the company. But I had a really good peer group of students and other people to work with, professors that understand capital markets and understand startups to bounce a lot of these ideas off of, and then use that to as a starting point and foundational base to start the company.
As the accelerator like a school then, or is that more of a learning laboratory? Like, what does it look like as you go through this?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely parts school, right? There's some academic settings, right? Basic things you need to learn. But then I think more of kind of like a collaborative setting is transforming what is your idea into, a vision and mission that aligns with the industry and that can make an impact. I think that's what kind of going through broadly a lot of the accelerators have helped me continue to develop and define, our place and our positioning in the market.
That's super cool. So did you meet John, your co-founder, John Howard?
Yeah, I actually
Yes.
met him in our first accelerator. He was actually a coach, mentor for the team that I was on, and we eventually hit it off, and we found that we had a lot of really good alignment, together, and very complementary to each other. And then yeah, ended up just starting Canopy after that.
Yeah. What a leap of faith.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually didn't meet each other in person because this was during COVID times until about 6 months after starting the company. We actually met up in LA at an event, but we had incorporated and kind of went all in. And he was still working his job. He was a prior founder as well, so he was kind of working on spinning out of that. And then I was working on graduating school and everything. So we kind of put a lot of faith in each other early on, and we still stand by that today. And then yeah, eventually met up after a few months, and then yeah, decided to move out here to Colorado after raising our first fundraising round, and then we actually live together today in a two-bedroom apartment, and then we're slowly getting our families over here to live full time with us. So we're all in on the venture and startup journey.
Yeah, the sacrifices. Very cool. So do these accelerators, how do they fund this? Is it all, equity, or is it sometimes just part of programs that they just offer and,
Yeah,
that
it
work?
depends. I'd say some will. So, for example, Chicago, that one was all you kind of go through a pitch competition. We started with it's about 90, and then that gets down to the top 10. We eventually got third place on that one with our company. And then you have investors that come in. So a lot of them are Chicago-based investors come in, and we pitch the company that we've been working on, and then a lot of them make investments that day. So yeah, we pitched, brought in our first 200K of equity financing, backed mostly through VCs in that space. And then there's other accelerators that work on more of a kind of like a equity sweat equity type model where they provide a lot of kind of leverage in terms of networking relationships, and that's how kind of like the Starburst Techstars model works.
Okay, great.
And yeah, some of them do make investments, just kind of depending on like their current fund and everything as well.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of veterans getting out, or just folks that want to start something. They know they want to do it. And it sounds like a fantastic way to help refine a vision
Yeah.
that can
Uh,
align with your skill set.
oh, and because I know some of these people might be listening, I forgot to mention there's also another veteran focused accelerator we went through called PenFed, Veteran Entrepreneurship Investment Program. It's been around for a few years, but really good for veterans to go out there and kind of work through an accelerator that's doesn't take any equity and has a pretty good network and just, work through thinking through their ideas. Yeah, just want to make that shout out to
No,
there.
that's great. Well, pivoting a little bit, talk to me about Canopy Aerospace. Very cool company, but where did you feel the need was, and you know, what does it look like?
Yeah, let me I'll talk about the context of kind of the industrial state we're in, that I think a lot of people are familiar with now these days. And there's a big generational shift happening in the world where the industrial sector needs to catch up, especially in the U.S. And what we're focused on is disrupting the manufacturing space in terms of transforming very advanced materials with a 3D printing additive manufacturing process is one of our core manufacturing capabilities. We do have robotics automation in the mix as well, and we do some software development, but our focus is on transforming kind of the legacy industrial sector so that we can actually develop capabilities that increase performance at a component level. And so it's usually the component level that is a catalyst for increasing the performance on a subsystem or an overall integrated system like the vehicle or missile system. So that's where we focus on is, we define ourselves as a industrial manufacturer that is developing critical capabilities and components focused on space and defense systems. And the term I like to define as what we're building into is creating industrial overmatch, which is the ability to transform materials and create, industrial capacity and capability that can allow us to build into the capabilities that we need to in our current industrial sector. And that leads to securing overall democracy, if you want to call it that, and helping us build into kind of economically, globally as a whole, and then into space systems, and kind of getting out into the far reaches of space eventually.
Can you give just one example of how you're doing this at the component level? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, one example would be, it's a good company we've been working with for a while. Is we've been developing small components on the thermal management side. So these are like heat exchangers that go into engine systems, aircraft systems, and a number of other kind of subsystem areas. And what we do with that component is that we 3D print it with a ceramic material that hasn't been done before, and we do it in a complex enough shape that allows us to increase performance significantly. So there's a lot of different use cases across, another example would be directed energy. We've been developing some components that help with the housing units on directed energy as well. propulsion, hypersonics, space re-entry, power electronics, semiconductors as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to support the overall industrial market, but it's a matter of taking time to transform each of these components down at the component material level. Which over time, that's where we look at how we uplift the whole industry through that process.
How challenging is that? You get a part, hey, we need to fix this. I mean, is obviously,
Say
yeah,
extremely challenging. It's manufacturing. It's pretty hard. Software is pretty hard as well. But manufacturing, we're still working on kind of newer processes that haven't been proven out yet, and that's part of what we're doing is proving out those manufacturing processes and getting a qualified, well-made part in a new material with a new process that hasn't been consistently done for decades is a new thing. And parts are scrapped. Parts do come out that are deformed or cracked or not to spec. So that's where we focus a lot on is the manufacturability, is getting to high rate production with a more complex manufacturing model that is still fairly difficult. So all while trying to fundraise and balance the company at the same time.
many hats. Yes, well, just from our Air Force backgrounds, the testing and evaluation of these things are sometimes killer. What's it like rolling out a new part into something that needs to be airworthy, or especially in the on the Department of Defense side, not necessarily commercial?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of this depends on the risk tolerance of our customers. And I'd say especially within kind of very like innovative sectors where these companies are looking to take a chance to get to market faster, space, aerospace. I'm talking about like defense type aerospace and space in general. The commercial aerospace sector, there's definitely a lot of regulations, right? FAA is a big part of that process for verifying and qualifying parts. And then every sector is different as well. The medical industry, for one, has different qualifications as well. So we are working threads, and we are focused on developing what are the helping inform the standards of 3D printing, advanced ceramics, and materials in our space to help inform the qualifications there. So that's one path of how we think about qualifying and getting into the market. But say it takes a hybrid manufacturing approach. Very hard to 3D print a part to spec. You have to do, some initial like post 3D printing, processing, machining, things like that. But we get pretty close on them, and some of our parts are, basically market and I'd say tolerance ready at that point. But yeah, there's still a lot of qualifications, and it's a challenging environment to navigate through.
Was that an example of a part you printed?
Yeah, so this one's actually you can see it here. It's a Canopy logo and tag here. So this is just a ceramic part 3D printed in alumina, which is a form of ceramic that's used in a lot of different kind of high performance systems that need better thermal management.
So we're looking for some swag. Could you guys print us some?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Is it hard to get into some of these? You're making or component level for larger systems. Is it hard to get the name out there so that they know that they could come to you to help drive some of this innovative change? Or how does kind of your go to market, voice to market work?
Yeah, our strategy currently over the last 2 years is a lot of the traditional method of going to conferences, right? Meeting people face to face, understanding the customer problem, right? What are their needs, requirements, and then developing the right capabilities, the right parts for those customers. Long term, we do look at what is more of a distribution model, right? Where you do open up the marketing funnel, but we're just not at that stage yet from a manufacturing perspective, because we want to stand up the production capability fully before we support what is a much larger market funnel. So there is an aspect of the software development side that I talked about, which we have been working on a bit, but we don't see that fully being deployed as a company where we can build more of a marketplace for these high precision 3D prints components that don't exist anywhere else. But yeah, it's what we're currently looking at for on that end.
Is this a busy or a crowded space, or are you one of the few that are type of, I mean, 3D printing's been around for a while, right?
3D
So,
printing's been around for a while, but depends on what material class you're after. And so your plastics, thermoplastics, metals, 3D printing metals has been around since the 90s. And then ceramics didn't really start until the 2000s. And so 3D printing in general is a space that's growing more and more. It's several billion dollars today on the metal side, and then several hundred million on the ceramic side to 3D print. But there's still a challenge for standing up the hybrid production model, and there's a lot of companies that get challenged with the unit economics. Right, if you print a very simple part, the unit economics don't work because a traditional manufacturing method will work better. And then if you print a more complex part, then the unit economics do work because that part will be more expensive and no one else can make it. So we're in a space right now where no one has stood up the production level capability for ceramics, and that's an industry we are looking at capturing where we're developing our own software stack that allows us to develop a better distribution model, but also allows us to simulate the part all the way through to make the design for manufacturability process more efficient, as well as develop our own materials as well, and then a better manufacturing process overall.
was this super capital intensive to stand up? I mean, it sounds like you got, manufacturing equipment,
Yeah,
access to materials where they can fail. Never mind the talent that you need to do this.
yeah. Depends who you're talking to and how much money they have, but I'd say not as capital intensive to be honest. There's definitely capex equipment. We have a lot of that in house so far, and we've raised a pre-seed round early on. We did about 4 million, and then what we do is we actually align ourselves with the government with R&D funding on their end. So we align different agencies between Air Force, NASA, Missile Defense Agency, or a few that we work with what are their kind of mission value drivers and what do they need on the commercial side, and we get them to fund us on R&D programs. And so we've actually developed partnerships with a lot of these government organizations to help underwrite a lot of our product development, where we're developing capabilities that they're interested in, and then that helps us underwrite our products for eventual commercialization. So we've been funded about 5 million to date. That's helped pay for a lot of our current capex and opex, and we have in the tens of millions in the pipeline, or this year, that we are ramping up towards, and it's actually getting us to a path of profitability. So we'll be cash flow positive by late Q3, Q4, if everything goes, as planned on the, kind of R&D partnership side there with the government. And then we use commercial kind of venture capital there to help us leverage those capabilities and get those to commercialization.
That's great. So you've got, is that your goal to become a lot of startups? It's like, no, we got to continue to grow and, not worried about cash flow positive. We're just going to maximize our growth ramp to make sure we secure, our position in the market. Is that a thought at all for you guys? Or
Yeah, there's definitely a balance because like if you model your finances correctly and you look at, okay, we're going to get cash flow positive to de-risk ourselves a lot more, then yeah, that's one path. But what do you give up in terms of that? You're going to give up, your growth trajectory, and then you're going to give up your ability to bring in, good capital on the books, which would be, either good VCs in the space that help you connect you with the rest of the industry, and there's like a branding aspect of it, right? Getting
Mhm.
high level VCs involved, but then there's also strategic capital as well. So getting in the right strategic partners help significantly as far as opening up business opportunities on their end, but then also it's another confidence builder. So we like to do both. We bring in government capital, but then we also align it with commercial capital as well. And I think we've been able to do that pretty well on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Are most of your government partnership funding, is that through like CIBR, you know,
Yeah, it's
awards?
a mix. So CIBR phase one, phase twos are kind of what a manufacturer can get to. Phase threes are almost that's reserved for integrators, right? A program of record. The Air Force is never going to buy one single component from us, right? They're
Right.
going to want to buy a jet or a missile system. But yeah, we have other funding mechanisms that we're working on, like IRAD, Defense Production Act, Title III. And then you have your TAC-FIs, TRAP-FIs, right, which are basically extensions of your SIBR process there. And then you have some in-kind kind of R&D dollars that we've been funded from NASA as well for testing and kind of R&D there. But yeah, we find creative ways to work with the government, and then we use that to help build our company while finding the right aligned incentives there.
So in this, defense industry, small businesses, what's the biggest challenge you think facing small businesses in this sector?
Yeah, I think in our sector, specifically aerospace, defense, manufacturing, it's growing into the valuations that what you're fundraising off of, right? So I think it's going to be really challenging for our company and other companies in the future as we kind of come out of the 2021, 2022 kind of fundraising cycles for these companies to get to Series A, Series B, and growth round numbers, where they have to grow into the multiples, they have to grow into the valuations that they were expected to grow into. However, these valuations are, were built off of SaaS multiples, 2 decades ago. So I think that's going to be kind of the realization point over the next few years where companies in our space need to understand, well, you need to grow, at a reasonable rate, but then also be very intentional about the capital you bring on and the valuations you expect to hit, because there's a lot of companies in space taking lateral rounds, down rounds, right, where you're not able to grow into the next round of funding there. Yeah, and then we talked about it previously already. Is those challenges I think can be mitigated by aligning yourselves with government capital to help fund a lot of what you're doing, and that helps build confidence in the marketplace. It helps underwrite all your product development on the financial side, and then helps build incredible IP that's aligned with the government, which is a customer of a lot of companies in the aerospace and defense side. I think that's the best way to do it in a very capital efficient way.
That's great. So advice for, fellow folks that want to start a company, in the aerospace and defense industry, what would you offer? Having now been a couple years into it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that continue, like, talk to anyone and everyone you can, right? Network, build an incredible network that you can lean on, and because you never know who you talk to can introduce you to another person that will lead to either a partnership, an investor, or maybe a business partner, or someone new that will join a team. But say that, and just having confidence in what you're building, but have do the market diligence, right? Talk to people in the problem space, verify the market and validate your assumptions, and then go out and build your company. And then also continue to validate your assumptions, right? Come up with new ones, validate them, and then continue de-risking the company and stay alive. Yeah, that's that's the most important part of starting a company.
Yes, don't get buried. Yeah, I think that communicating and network, we get so busy into doing your business that I think for some folks, especially the technical folks, I think that starts to fall off sometimes. And, that's super important to keep that going, because you never know, like you said. Yeah. So for Canopy Aerospace, long-term goal, where do you guys see yourself in 5 years? What's on the horizon as we watch you guys?
Yeah, in 5 years, we'll look at capturing a lot of the high temperature materials space, where ideally our components materials, which are on a few systems today, kind of around hypersonics and space systems, but we want to see our capabilities and manufacturing model be able to support and uplift the entire industry there. So being on missile systems, spacecraft, reentry systems, propulsion systems, electronics, everything kind of in between, and being able to support what is a industrial sector that's much needed. And then overall 10-year vision, I mean, ideally there's probably an exit somewhere along those lines. You'll kind of see about what that path looks like, but been working on this for a while, and a lot of lifetime founders and entrepreneurs in the space, but definitely owe some time back to the family as well eventually. But yeah, want to continue building a really great company that can really solve a lot of problems overall in the industrial sector that supports us all as a whole.
Well, super exciting, and super excited for you guys. I think that's all we're gonna have time for. But if folks want to continue to watch the work you're doing or check in with you or connect, how best would they do that?
Yeah, so website is canopyaerospace.com, all one word. And then yeah, if you're looking to reach out on partnerships and or anything, just learning more about us, my email's matt@canopyaerospace.com. So yeah, just don't spam me with services and things like that. But yeah, always looking to meet new people.
I got something for you to buy. No, so
Yeah.
always dangerous sharing your email like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Open to it though. Yeah.
yeah, fun conversation, and no kidding, I learned a lot. I think it's an amazing journey so far, and really look forward to your successes. And I think you're set up well. Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for taking the time, Dave. And yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
all the thoughtful questions here.
yeah. Well, we'll see you around, but thanks again, and we'll chat later.
Yeah, sounds good.